Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Off Air podcast. This time, we are following on from our New Year's Celebratory Edition podcast, which, if you haven't already checked out, I will just put it in the top right hand corner there. So, do feel free to go and have a look back at that one. But this time, we're taking a look over the eventful month of January on and off the field for the Stones. Of course, a big cup win. We've had some very disappointing league losses as well. We've had a new caretaker manager come in. We've had takeover talks. So much stuff has gone on in this last 4 weeks since we last all saw you on the channel. And speaking of we, who are we? Well, I'm Joe Parkhouse, of course. I do run the JP on Comms channel. With me today are channel regulars Nigel Seeger. Hello, Nigel.
Oh,
And Sean Skur. Hello, Sean.
Hello.
So, of course, we are all here today to talk about what I've just mentioned, the very eventful month of January. So, to kick things off, back in the first week of Jan, we did have the return fixture of those festive games, and it was Dagenham at home. And Sean, we'll go to you for this one. A loss for Maidstone, of course. It was quite narrow in its scoreline, but did that accurately reflect the game, or how did that really play out? Of course, we were probably expecting a little bit better considering a narrow away loss. So bringing that back home, expectations met, or maybe just too low.
Well, expectations weren't met because I think most people thought they could get a result both away and then at home in a game that was, of course, on BT Sport. All the cameras were there, all the girdings and hoardings and everything else, all the gumph that the TV people bring. And Maidstone, to be fair to them, held out for a very long time. They had Dagenham had a goal disallowed for a second phase offside that was very, very tight. It did look like Bingham Williams had played him on. And then for the second one, there was a Stonewall penalty that Cody Lance Foster had given away, and that also wasn't given to the benefit of Dagenham. So Maidstone very much hanging on. Not constant pressure from Dagenham, but certainly the better side. Maidstone probably would have been happy with a point. And then some great wing play, again, including Weston, and a ball arriving in the box for Josh Walker to tuck home and give Dagenham a fully deserved win. They didn't really break stride most of the match. I'd probably say it was the slightly better of the two performances for Maidstone against Dagenham, but that really isn't very high praise. Dagenham fully deserved their 6 points over the festive period. But again, some signs that Maidstone did have potential to start the year on a positive footing. And as we know, it's not really gone from strength to strength. Whatever the opposite of that would be is what we've had.
Yeah, certainly a tough one to take at the start of the year. Like you said, I mean, I think the signs were there that, there was a chance we could get something from both of those games, especially the one at home. Of course, our home form has been a little bit better than our away form, I do believe, this season. So, a narrow defeat on the road, I think bringing that back to the Gallagher, home fans, good attendance as per. We probably would have expected a little bit more in terms of competition. Obviously, did escape with one regarding the scoreline. One we did not escape the scoreline from was York. That was the next game in January, and that was, of course, on the road. I didn't make that one. I watched it on National League TV, first time watching that. Relatively impressed, actually. So, yeah, not too bad to be featuring on that, is it, boys, when we do the home commentaries? But away on the road to York, it was, I do believe, the debut of a certain Johan Zuma, someone who had just signed after we played Dagenham. And of course, I think that almost started this kind of behind the scenes uproar that we've seen so much of in January. Nigel, a couple of things I'm going to ask you about. Well, I'll ask you about York first. And then afterwards, I'll ask you about some of the ongoings behind the scenes. So what about that York game for you, the 4-1 defeat? It wasn't a great game at all, was it?
no, it wasn't really, but it started off so well. Of course, we was 1-0 up through Jack Barham within the first couple of minutes, and then, as is customary, and we've talked about over previous months' podcast, we didn't sort of consolidate that lead. We sat back and invited them onto us. As you say, it was preceded by the announcement of Zuma, and I still we haven't seen him play since, but the second goal, I think it was the own goal. I mean, I just don't understand. I know he hasn't played for so long,
Yeah.
but why would you do that? I just don't understand it. Some people are questioning whether Barton's position was um, questionable. Maybe it was, but then at the end of the day, what he wasn't really expecting the ball to come back, and he was hit with such power and velocity that he didn't really have any chance really of stopping it. It was such a surprise to him, I think. And again, once that second goal went in, you could just see the confidence drain from the team. He was meant to come in to sort of plug the gaps in our defence, and he in turn made it worse. And it did have a sense of inevitability about it. The result, because once they sort of got in front, York, every time they come forward, it was just like a knife through butter. And one mistake led to another mistake, and then you have people. George Farrow had a good game in there. He again, it's like we've talked before. He's covering two positions. He's having to do his right back duties, and because then he's shuffling across to the centre back position to cover the mistakes there, and then you're neither there or there. You don't know whether to go for your man or cover the gap to cover the cross, and it just and I think that was as it proved as well. That was the beginning of the end for Terry and Hack, because if anybody remembers back to the end of the Harry Weeder days and that over game, that second half, it was quite toxic, and you could kind of see what was going to happen at the end, and it's just not nice to see. It's and it's so quick to happen. We won the league, and all of a sudden, we knew it was going to be a tough season, but we just not helping ourselves at times, and that was just one of those games where everything came to a head. And I say once we went behind, that was it.
Yeah, you mentioned there actually a couple of things I was going to ask you about after you spoke about the actual game itself, and the first of which was being kind of this catalyst for change. You mentioned this Zuma signing, that almost started this kind of trickle effect of what ultimately led to Hack and Terry's departure at Maidstone, at least in my opinion. And for me, at the time of that Zuma signing, obviously Maidstone were lacking a little bit defensively. Of course, we had a few injuries and things like that. Greenwich, of course, been out for quite a while, and for the foreseeable too. But to have Zuma come in when there was already this kind of air of toxicity around, the back behind the scenes of the club, you kind of questioned why him out of everybody we could have got, everyone that was available. And then, of course, what happened after the game, with the comments and things like that between fans and the management team. Nigel, how do you think that all kind of, it was obviously dealt with quite poorly at the time. Do you think that the whole situation could have been handled a little bit better? Do you think that perhaps had we not signed Zuma, that could have maybe just, we brought in someone a little bit better, someone who had a better reputation, someone who was going to strengthen the team in a footballing sense as well as off the field as well. Do you think that could have maybe changed the tide for Hack and Terry, or do you think that it run quite a bit deeper than that?
I don't know. I think it's probably run a little bit deeper than that, because the Zuma signing was just another bad signing on top of bad signings from the summer. and we're having to play catch up. You know, we've been doing that all season. In reality, I mean, Zuma wasn't even playing. He's not even like third or fourth choice for Dagenham. He hadn't been playing, so not exactly it's a cast off of the cast offs. It's just it did look a desperate signing, and I think that's taking aside the controversy around it. If he was a player that had been playing regularly for Dagenham and performing at a high level, and with all this and his ban and that, you think, okay, we'll give him a chance. But he wasn't even performing at that standard before. So he's sort of like, it was just a melting pot of everything, me. I think it was just one poor signing too far. And and then to put in that performance against York, again, he could have redeemed it. You just stick to the basics and you just, I just don't understand why you do that. When you teach children on a Sunday morning or any club, it's like you don't do that. You just do not do that pass back like that to a keeper on your debut as well. In your first 10 minutes of playing, and you've not played for whatever it is over a year. It's just I couldn't understand it, and and at the end of the day, Hack's interview after that as well. He was talking about giving him a chance and stuff like that. It's like, well, to me, it was kind of like you've dug players out for better performances, and then you're sticking up for somebody like that who's putting a performance like that with all that controversy around it. And so I say, you wasn't helping yourself, and you're just making a bad situation worse. And I think, obviously we'll come on to the owner situation, and it's still sort of all built up in the air who did sack him. But I think it was just one bad game too far, really. And that, I don't think whoever made the sacking, whoever took that decision, they had no other decision to come to, really. At that point, we were right in the. It wasn't. We was just in the relegation zone a little bit. We was way in there, and a change just had to happen. I think at that point.
Yeah, I think so. At that point in the month, we were certainly very deep in the trenches, I feel, and we've only sunk deeper actually, just to cap things off a slightly nicer approach to that. But yeah, York was not a good game in any sense. I think what you mentioned there, Nigel, about the Zuma sign, it wasn't just his off the pitch controversy that actually caused so many problems for people. For me, at least, the biggest thing, obviously, looking at a footballing aspect, was he played 8 games in about 2 years, and that's just not even close to what we needed at the time. Still not what we need now. I've got no idea if he's still around the club. I think he is still training with the club. But yeah, it was such a strange signing, like even from a footballing perspective, as you said, if we brought someone in who was in that Dagenham first team, was playing week in, week out, but had that controversy around him, then, maybe we could have understood it from one perspective. But yeah, it was a very, very confusing one. And again, that just kind of set us up to unfortunately lose both Hack and Terry from the role they did have at the club. But like you say, that was kind of spurred on by this new owner talk as well, which we will get into a little bit more. But that was around the time where it started. But once Hack and Terry did leave, of course, we did bring in George Edakobi as caretaker manager. George Edakobi, of course, ex-Maidstone player, did retire at the Gallagher last season, scored in his final game as well at home, which of course was a fantastic goal if you weren't there. But yeah, Mr. Good feeling, Mr. Motivation. It was just fantastic to see him back. It's exactly his game. He is all about elevating spirits, and I think as downbeat as this Maidstone team was at the start of the month, it was a good idea to bring him in, at least just to get the players back on side. He's very familiar with a lot of the players still in the dressing room, and he did take charge of his first game with Ryan Gordon, who has also returned to the club as a coach. He did take charge of his first game against Notts County in the trophy. So Sean, we won that game. We won that game 6-5 on penalties after a 2-2 draw in normal time. What a day that was. I mean, a fantastic occasion, of course. A cup win against a fantastic side, a side which fielded a lot of their very good players, definitely had a side out that should be more than capable of beating the Maidstone team we've seen throughout this season. So, what did that game mean for you? You know, I know you're always championing cup runs and things like that as good opportunities for sides. So, what does that Notts County game mean for you?
Well, it's the hope that it builds confidence within the squad that they're able to compete against these bigger clubs at the top end of the table, which, to be fair, Maidstone have done on occasion this season. There has been the odd blip where there has been the odd kicking, but we'll go on to the next game in a little while, and it's going to be a very similar story in that one as well. A couple of chinks of light in what's been a fairly miserable January, but yeah, it was just a great start from Maidstone, able to get through some defensive frailties and goalkeeping frailties. I mean, when you're a goalkeeper and you're called Mayor, it sort of lends itself to a bit of comedic timing on his part, roaring out most of the way to the halfway line to get logged by Rory Deacon for Maidstone to everybody's surprise. However good the performance was on the day, for him to then make it 2-0. And then we know that we've had quite a few penalty shootouts in recent years in the FA Trophy, and we know 90 minutes are up, it goes to penalties. So if you're 2 up with half an hour to go at the best team in non-league, you are thinking, we've got a shot at this. Even if we do concede 2 goals, we can then take this to penalties and give them a damn good go. And fortunately, you know, it went our way in the shootout. But just a great occasion for those 215 Stones fans that made the trip. And just fantastic to show there is potential. The season itself potentially could be gone by this stage. I'll throw some stats out in a little while once we've finished the games of January. As you know, I like to stat my you know what up, as the prodigy once never said. But yeah, just a great occasion for Maidstone. Very disciplined performance. They're always going to have a lot of pressure put on them by a home side that's vastly superior. And again, even their reserve side, most of them would get into a Maidstone side currently this season based on form, what little play time they would have had. But yeah, just great scenes, and long may they continue this season. And I will be the first one to say of the group, if we had to get relegated, we got a trip to Wembley. I certainly would take that this season at this stage. I mean, we do seem a little stranded at the moment. We'll get into that later, but I certainly would take a Wembley trip if it meant we had to play South football again next season. But
Yeah, I mean, that's just what the trophy's all about, isn't it? You know, those big
certainly
trips
not the money.
away and
Certainly not the money at all in the trophy.
no,
It's
not in
more,
the trophy, very true. Maybe in the FA Cup, of course, you do
yeah,
champion the bigger rounds in that, but the trophy, you know, it's all about the occasion. It's all about that potential of getting to Wembley, which teams like Maidstone don't do. You know, of course, it is what everybody kind of dreams of. You know, everybody knows Wembley is this big cup final stage, and what an amazing feat that would be if we could pull that off by the end of the season. So we will see what happens regarding that. But Nigel, of course, not the first time we've been to Notts County this season, and this time a little bit more of a positive result. You know, of course, we did get a win in this one, albeit on penalties. How did you feel that this set up the potential for Maidstone to build? Do you feel like this was a really good foundation? Was this the type of game we needed after bringing in George Edakobe?
Yeah, in many respects, it was the ideal game to have because, you know, as Sean alluded to there, they're the top of the league going into the game. So no one expected us to get anything. And of course, we did have the free coach travel up there, which, as we said, alluded to, that there was, you know, over 200 fans that took up that offer. And I think there was a few that was going up anyway. The team stayed overnight. So, you know, that's all going to have a positive effect on them. And they actually took the game to Notts County before the penalty that we did score in normal time. We did create a few chances, a few openings, certainly more than we did in the league game up there. And we did look solid. I mean, they didn't start with Langstaff, but as we said before, the second string striker that they did bring in would walk into most National League sides in the league. So it certainly wasn't a weak team. The defence was exactly the same. They still played the same. Chickson was still playing, and the same centre back pairing. So in that respect, it was a similar team. I did. We did was helped by the goal. He did have a mare. He was at fault for the penalty and the second goal. Rush of blood to the head. But what was impressive was we took those chances. Whereas earlier in the season, maybe we was getting those chances and we wasn't taking them. We were snatching at them, and against these bigger teams, and we've said it before in previous pods that in the National League South, if you miss your first chance, miss your second chance, you know that 5 minutes out of a third chance is going to come along. Whereas at this level, they don't. You've got to take your chances, and we took the chances in that game. Again, it was a defensive errors that led to their goals, but you're going to expect that being away from home. And one thing I would say as well is that we didn't miss a penalty. Well, we did miss a penalty, but then that was obviously having to retaken. And all our 6 penalties we scored. So, in that respect, it was good. And obviously, Tom Hadler was the hero.
Indeed, Tom Hadler, who unfortunately actually is now injured, I do believe. But we've got one injured goalkeeper going out, one injured goalkeeper coming back. So it's a funny old cycle, the Maidstone goalkeeping situation this year, unfortunately for us. But yeah, I mean, what a fantastic day out that was. Notts County, I love the place, really, really enjoy going to Nottingham, and to come away with a win in a cup competition against, as you both said, the best team in non-league at the moment is just really, really good, and I really enjoyed that game. So coming off the back of that, obviously we had probably the second best team in non-league, and this time in a game that probably meant a little bit more. Of course, a league game back at the Gallagher, Ella Kobe's first game at home. A massive, massive game. I think everybody was looking forward to Wrexham coming to town. The attendance was massively, massively high. I think that's our highest of the season. I might be wrong, Sean. Yeah, there. So, the highest of the season. I think, again, it kind of helped that there was no expectation in terms of a win or a result. But performance-wise, coming off the back of Notts, I think everybody was like, if we can just match performance-wise the effort, determination, and ability to take the chances that may come up, we could again get something. It wouldn't be the first time that we've had a tough game at home this season and got something from it. So bringing them to us, I did commentate that one with Fred, and I think besides Dorking at home, that is the most deflated I felt after a game this season. Doing a commentary, it was so tough. I think I did actually also say maybe Bromley was pretty bad away, but definitely at home, that was up there. And I think that tells you all you need to know, really. I mean, nobody expects relegation candidate Maidstone to be feeling disappointed with a loss against Wrexham of all teams. I thought we played absolutely fantastically. We got so unlucky. Of course, that penalty, which a lot of people have said was quite dubious. I think there might have been a little tread on the foot of Mullin, maybe, something like that. But, it wouldn't be the first time someone's conspired that Wrexham may be getting a dubious pen. But yeah, just for me, that end, the way it ended, that goal we conceded from the corner was just so typical of Maystone's season and something we've done so many times. I mean, it just screams Dorking away. Bobby Joe Taylor scoring 2 corners from 2 corners in the last 5 minutes of a game. And just to see that happen again against Wrexham was so downbeaten for me. Yeah, I really struggled with that one. But like I say, there were a hell of a lot of positives, especially off the back of Notts County game. So I was very hopeful going into the next two winnable league games that we had coming up. Has anybody else got any opinions on Wrexham? I know, it's a bit of a tough one to take. I think I've done quite well, but Sean, what is it you'd like to add?
I've told you guys off air before as well, but it reminded me of the Hungerford game from last season, which I wasn't there for obvious reasons, but just from going 2-0 down to getting back to 2-2, that's just all the buzz of the crowd was, and there was only one side that should have been able to have won from
Yeah.
that position, but it just again, saw at the weekend in their FA Cup game as well. They never say die, and they're always in with a chance. And they brought in a bloody League One defender again yesterday at time of recording, which is Wednesday. Tuesday would have been the end of the transfer window. So that bring in a fairly regular defender from League One, Charlton. Which they need to, because that Hayden who got the winner against us, was one of the two who got injured early on against Sheffield United. But enough about everything else with Wrexham. But it was a great occasion again. Spun on the Notts County feel-good vibes a bit further, and just we had it at Chesterfield. I did one this season as well, and they did exactly the same to us, scoring in stoppage time. So I fully expect Notts County to come to us in April. And probably do the same and confirm our relegation by then. But it's only a fortnight out from the end of the season, that one. So no, 19. So
I think we do quite well to be still mathematically up by that time. But you never know.
February's the big month. February's the big month. As we
It
keep
is.
saying, I keep pushing it down the line, but I have said for a very long time, February's the do or die month, and we've had the two chances already before February that we're about to discuss. But it really is do or die this month now. If we don't come out with any positive results, then
sayonara. Yeah, and as Sean alluded to there, of course, after two positive performances at least, not necessarily two fantastic results. One good result, of course, against Notts. One disappointing, I do believe, result against Wrexham. We did, of course, have the first of our winnable run of fixtures against Aldershot, and this one was at home, a Tuesday night, I do believe, and I could not make this game. I was working. I've been informed by quite a few people that I was very lucky to have been dragged into work on that very, very disappointing evening. A 3-0 loss, one which my dad did claim as the worst performance of the season. I don't know entirely why, which is why I'm going to bring it to you in a second, Sean. That was the case. But maybe you can expound it a little bit more. Was it because you think maybe we had such a good result against Wrexham? It was quite a quick turnover of games, of course, Saturday, Tuesday. Not often we've done that this season. So yeah, Sean, I'll let you kind of go on to that one, really.
After the Lord Mayor's show is an expression I use very often on this channel and in my commentaries, but having put in our two best performances there or thereabouts this season against the top two in non-league, just fell so flat. They got a goal very early on. Defending was atrocious. Keeper position managed to take a step the wrong way. Effiong sort of semi-bicycle kicks an effort in on goal. He gets himself a couple more goals. Minoga, the one that Nigel mentioned to us off air about having absolutely horrific debuts for everybody he's ever played for, breaking Shamanga's leg. He goes and Maradona's slaloms past four of our defenders, plays an Effiong for his second. Effiong header for the third one at the back stick. I mean, we've discussed about what strikers we'd like to see brought in by Maidstone, but Effiong, I believe, was poo-pooed by yourself in a certain WhatsApp group, Joe, and I think that one bit you quite alarmingly on the derriere for that evening, so it's probably best that you weren't there, or else I would have been throwing me bleeding headphones at you for that one. But he was the difference. He was brilliant, and he's carried on that form since as well, pretty much scoring every time he's played the last couple of games. And Jack Barham had similar form over a shorter period of time, but Effiong's has just stayed longer and longer and longer. And he was the difference. It was just so flat for Maidstone. Again, after the Lord Mayor's show, very disappointing the fact that we couldn't keep that momentum going. And yeah, if there is some sort of fatigue, mental as well as physical, then I think that might have been it. And then I think it was probably more of the same for the next one at the weekend just gone.
Yeah, unfortunately, I did come to rue my downplaying of Ini Effiong. Nigel, I know I weren't really going to come to you on all the shot game, but I know we did exchange some words on Effiong about him being a purple patch player. Is there anything you want to chuck in about him real quick, or do you want to just leave all the shot in the past and try and move on briskly to Torquay?
No, I mean exactly it. He is that. He's a purple patch player. He's very much a confidence player. I mean, we talked about that game earlier, the toxic game of Harry Wheeler's last game. It was, of course, Effiong who scored that goal for Dover, who was the final now in Harry Wheeler's coffin. So he has got history against Maidstone. He's a player that you get clubs like that they just perform against certain teams and certain styles of play, and maybe it's just something that he thrives on. I mean, he wasn't very effective in the home game there, but you just caught him at the wrong time.
Yeah, so as you say, very much a purple patch player, Nigel in Effiong. I do believe he's got 8 goals now in his last 5 games at time recording. Of course, excellent form from himself at just the wrong time for Maidstone, unfortunately. And that leads us on to the next game. Again, a game which I thought was probably the most winnable of our upcoming fixtures. And that was Torquay away. Of course, we would have leapfrogged them in the relegation zone if we had won that game. Of course, if you're watching this, you probably know we didn't win that game. It was a 1-0 victory to Torquay on the road for Maidstone. And Nigel, another tough one to take.
Yes, again, as you say, not just the fact that they're down with us, but as we said on commentary, we have got a 100% record with them in recent times. Torquay, we are definitely beating us. Was their very first fixture against us back in the old Division 4 days. We've had a good record against them in both league and cup, but it wasn't to be. Game very much low on quality. I think both teams, as we said on commentary, were very nervous. We actually called it and said that it'd be a mistake that caused the effective result, and it proved to be. Regan Booty gave the ball away, or he was intercepted by Lapsley, who managed to lay off to Goodwin, and he was through 1-on-1 virtually with Arden and shot into the top right hand corner, and that was it. Game over. Good night, nurse. But there was a few individual performances, good performances there. I think it was interesting that we set up playing the 3 at the back, 5 at the back slash. Joe Bay looked good. He come on the previous game against Aldershot in the second half substitution for Law, who was injured. And he started this game and he didn't look out of place. I mean, he's only 19, but he showed good strength. He's got good pace. He took a couple of the throw-ins. He got good distance on them. Once again, Jamar Lawson was effective. He played in the more advanced role in midfield. But the confusing thing for me was we were playing the wing backs, but we had Sam Gorn playing as right wing back. I don't think that worked. As we said on the commentary, it's good that they were trying a new system, and the three at the back with the 2 wing backs pushing on can be quite an effective system if you've got the wing backs that can beat a player and put the cross in the box. Unfortunately, we were playing 2 deep, and at times we were playing 5 at the back. So consequently, when we did play the ball out, once again, Barham was up against their tallest player, and again he did all right. There's no lack of effort there, but he's creating his own chances. He goes up, he wins the header, and there's no one up the play with him, and it just falls straight to a Torquay player, and it was just very frustrating that we did have spells in the game where we was looking okay, but then again there was times in the game when neither side, to be fair, could put two passes together, and it was all
Mm.
a bit scrappy. And as we said before, the referee, well, some of the
It's tough.
decisions, I tell you, and it wasn't helped by the fact that our commentary position, we had probably had three wannabe referees sitting right behind us that only saw the game through Torquay spectacles, and every time that a Maidstone player went close to a Torquay player, they were labelling them as thugs, and then every time a Torquay player went and they were unlucky, it was just all added to the frustrating afternoon. But then, like you say, that's where it goes when you're down the bottom of the table. You come sometimes you want that lucky break, sometimes you want that sort of the proverbial goaling off the backside, some ludicrous own goal. But at the moment, everything's going against us, and we just can't seem to get away. We're not getting spanked again. We're not getting played off the park. Like, we was in the game all the time up until their goal, and even after they scored their goal, we had the last 5 minutes. There was pressure, but too little, too late. And as we said on commentary, there comes a point where you can't just keep having. You don't get points for having a good performance. It's not like ice skating. You don't get higher marks for the performance you put in. It's all about those 3 points, and we're just not getting those breaks, and we're just not getting anything. And it's not even if we're getting a point. It's nothing. And the more it goes on, the further behind we're getting. And with the games in hand that the teams above us have got, it's getting a bit of a dire situation.
Yeah, Maystone are not in a good position at all. I think that's been acknowledged as well by the players. I think George Edakobe's definitely said that as well. He knows that we're not in a good spot, and he's not shying away from that, which is fair enough. But as you mentioned there, Nigel, I think the setup was not necessarily wrong, but I don't think we quite had the players to facilitate the system we were trying to play. Um, Sam Corn, he's fantastic in the middle. He's fantastic at just getting stuck in, breaking things up, little knocks around the corner. Not exactly the best at beating someone on a dribble and bombing down the line and knocking one in. So I think if we had players who could suit that system, that could be something we see bear some fruit. I think at times, we saw Rory Deak and Jack Barham just were the only two players in the attacking half, really, on a quick break. And then by the time the cavalry had arrived, Torquay had 7 men back, so he didn't really stand a chance. I don't think we had our first shot on target until the 85th minute. I did see the Torquay goalkeeper made it into the Vanarama Team of the Week. Not sure they really watched that one. And yeah, not to upset any Torquay fans who might stumble across this one, but yeah, I mean, I'm sure we'll be seeing them next season, so don't want to upset them too much. But what a load of whinges! What a load of whinges the whole time, every single tackle decision, everything. Oh, it's such a frustrating game. Of course, I'll sound like the salty team fan who's getting relegated, who lost, but yeah, it's just not a great day out, unfortunately for us. But yeah, that sums up all of the games in January. And now on to the more behind the scenes, off the field things, which of course everybody's so keen on learning more about at the moment. Unfortunately, we haven't got any sort of exclusive information we can be passing out. I'm sure if we knew it, we'd be more than happy to share. But unfortunately, everybody seems to just be in the dark at the moment. It's a lot of he said, she said, and the rumor mill is in full flow right now. So let's go back, of course, something we've already touched on in the video so far. But of course, that's Hakan Heyrettin and Terry Harris. A good few years there with Maidstone now. Good couple of years that they've both been working on their own, of course. Did start off with John Still being kind of that, I believe it was the head of football, and Hakan was the head coach, and then of course became the club manager when John Still did depart. But lots of great memories from our time with Hakan and Terry. very, very grateful for everything from last season. I know Sean will come to you in a moment, but it was a very, good amount of time that you spent talking with Hakan about situations in your own life, and he was always there um, for yourself, of course, and many other people around the club. Of course, an article actually just came out this morning that he did actually give his league winners medal to a young fan, which of course just kind of summed up the relationship he had with fans. I think is very good, very positive, and one that I will miss, of course, despite how things did turn out in the end. I won't forget what happened last season, the memories we all made. So thank you very much, Hack and Terry, of course, for that. Sean, onto yourself. Just a quick summary for you about Hack and Terry's time in charge. Obviously a slightly negative ending, but lots of fantastic memories along the way, right?
Indeed, it's very rare that anyone, especially in football, leaves a job on a high and is able to leave without there being any problems or bad words said against them from inside or outside the camp. But yeah, obviously you mentioned Matt Wright and his family. I know Matt very well from my younger brother's years playing football with him many moons ago for Blue Eagles, and not speaking out of turn on Matt's behalf, saying that his father passed away the other year during COVID times. A great loss to all of us, a great guy. My dad was massive, massive buddies with him as well. So great respect for Hakan for that particular gesture. And yeah, I've obviously had my run-ins with Hack, with my wife, with her illness that she's had the last several years now. Famously, we beat Dartford 4-0. And he dedicated the victory to her off the back of Nigel letting him know, wondered where the idiot in the suit was and why I wasn't there for once. The story I always tell about introductions with managers is, I've met George before numerous times, and one of them was at the sponsored sleep out in the cold at the start of 2020 at the Gallagher, and I met him there and had a lot of good conversation with him there, and he still remembers me from that particular time. It was when I first met Harry Wheeler. He was his assistant. Tristan Lewis saw me for the first time in the amber suit, and he just said, "Oh, Harry, look, here he is, look, look." And then he just turns to me and looks and says, "All right." So he sort of marked his card straight away with me. But the first time I got to meet Hack was away at Harrogate, and we had a good couple of minutes just chatting. He was in the middle of doing some duties and having a chat with with Simon Weaver, their head coach. But he saw me dressed up, wheeling on our suitcase, and he had a good couple of minutes with me, and that's when it all started. And yeah, just on a personal level, at any point, be it about football, be it about personal stuff, he was always there for a chat. I did eventually get to say a proper goodbye to him. So proper, it was a text message, but it's still better than what a lot of others would have liked to have done, to have said, as you quite rightly say, Joe. So many great memories from what was one of the great seasons in Maidstone's history, and certainly the best one by far, probably since they've come back to the county town as well. But that's the journey of football. It means we've managed to have ourselves a league title, had a couple of shindigs at the ground, and we've all grown older and wiser because of it. And yeah, cheers, Hack, for that. Thank you.
And Nigel, yourself, of course, I'm sure you'll have something to say about Hack and Terry's time at the club.
Yeah, pretty much echo what Sean said, really. I mean, I suppose when we do commentating at Maidstone, obviously we're up on the gantry and we always have Radio Kent next to us. So generally, when we've done a live commentary and we're packing the gear away, he does always come up, and he always, to me anyway, makes a point of just coming over and seeing how he was and what I think of the game, and always waiting to go on to Radio Kent. So he always, and even at away games, I mean, he if he saw you around the ground on a match day when you wasn't commentating, he'd always make a point of coming over and saying hello to you. also I remember as well. I went to the I think it was Dartford and Chippenham, the playoff game last year. Obviously, we'd been promoted at that point. I went to that game, and Hakan Terry was standing there, and I was standing behind Steve King in the Dartford bench, and he came over, and we were watching the penalty shootout together, and he was sort of just the banter, really, just sort of, I think he's going to miss it, or he's going to score this. And that's just, it's just a little thing. It's just a memory, but you that's what you take away from it. He always sort of made time for you. Um, as we just mentioned with the young fan there giving his medal away, he was very good like that. But like we've said, football, it's a results driven business, isn't it? At the end of the day, and the record doesn't lie. We are bottom of the league. We've lost games, and the summer activity hasn't been good. Whether we can blame that on Hack solely, or whether it's a collective of not getting his targets that he wanted, and the ball's not backing him. We'll never know. But whoever you speak to is going to come up with a different side of it. But he's gonna. He was still saying right up until the end. We will get out of it. We will get out of it. That's his self belief. I wouldn't expect him to come out and say, "Oh, we're in deep shit here." He always had that self belief that he would get out of it. I mean, you know, it's just all I would say is thanks to the memories. You can't take away that last season. It's there. It's in the history banks, and Hack was the architect of that. So as a Maidstone fans, we'll always be forever grateful.
Absolutely. I mean, three hopefully very fitting tributes there to Hack's time with the club. Thank you very much for your service, of course, to Maidstone. That goes exactly the same for Terry Harris as well. And of course, we have just had another departure too, one which is very recent at the time of recording. Joe Alol, who, of course, has been such a key feature during Hakan's time in charge. I believe he got the Supporters Player of the Year last year when we ended up winning the National South. Was undoubtedly at times the best defender in the league, if not throughout the whole season. Just absolutely fantastic. The songs and the interactions, just everything surrounding Joe Alol last season was just absolutely fantastic, and it was really, really good to see him succeed and how he did. And of course, his season's not gone exactly how I'm sure he would have hoped. He's been unfortunately riddled with injuries, and of course, off the field disputes with management and things and fans. So it has been tough. But again, I can only extend my gratitude to Joe for his time at the club as well. Thank you so much for everything. Really going to put you up there with Hack and Terry in terms of your commitment to the club in the last few years, and how you've contributed to the success of Maidstone, most certainly last season, but of course throughout your time here as well. So thank you very much to him for that. Lads, have you got anything more that you wanted to add there on Mr. Alol's departure?
It could be a fun edit for you, Joe. You'll have to edit this down.
Yeah. I might keep this in.
Fair enough. I was waiting for Nigel to go, but I'll jump in quickly instead then. He's obviously left for Sittingbourne because the contract stipulated he couldn't join a fellow National League or National League North or South side due to his new work opportunity, meaning he couldn't do the training the 3 mornings a week. And it makes sense to me that a man who's got a brick wall for a head would join the Brickies as well. So some sort of weird singularity, circular motion to that. But a great character, incredibly passionate. If there's one word I'd say, passionate, and a true leader. And shame to see him go, but under the circumstances, completely understandable.
Most definitely. And Nigel?
Yeah, he was definitely a player that wore his heart on his sleeve, wasn't he? He had that injury last year that kept him out for a couple of months, but he came back and I remember really looking. He was that kind of player. That he originally signed behind the season behind closed doors, wasn't he? And if you remember, his first goals were in that game down at Havant Waterlooville when he got that win. I think it was a 3-2 win for Blake that season. No one was there.
95th minute equaliser, and shout out to John Gooch for his commentary on
Yeah,
that equaliser. As good as the
exactly.
stuff we've come out with in years gone by. So yes, hello Gucci.
That was definitely the sort of like it epitomised him really in that early stage when there was no fans there, but he still was able to motivate him and the team to go and get a result like that, come from behind a 95th minute winner. You know, it's probably a good move all round. You know, he's always going to be remembered. You know, his legacy is that championship winning team, like we said with Hack, isn't it? So, he's always going to be a Stones legend in that respect. So, hopefully, once his playing career is over, we'll see him back down the Gallagher a few times as we do with our other ex-players. Hopefully he'll always have a warm welcome down at Maidstone. And as I say, you can't take away that champion. He was a champion. He was part of that championship winning team, and that he'll go down in the Maidstone history for that.
Certainly one of the biggest characters that Maidstone have had in recent years, and one of the better players as well. So again, thank you, Joe, for everything that you've done over the last few years, of course. And now on to the biggest probably situation around the club over the last month. And that has, of course, been Takeover Talk, something that I've made quite a few videos on as well. So again, feel free to go back through the channel if you just want to educate yourself a little bit on the things that I've been able to find out on some of the ongoings around the behind the scenes sort of thing to do with the club, takeover bids, who may be involved in that, what the kind of situation is there, then check those videos out, of course. But yeah, there was a very good reaction that we got. That was when just after Hack had left, and it's all these rumors circulating as who made the decision, and then there was kind of the lingering talk around the fan base of this is the guy that's coming in, this is the guy that's coming in as this new kind of majority stakeholder in the club. And then the club put out that statement about having accepted that initial offer from Alan Manchett, that kind of majority shareholder stake that he was taking in the club, and all the talk was it would be done around this time, around the start of February. And unfortunately, last week, of course, before the Aldershot game, timed oh so well, it was announced that unfortunately that offer had now been withdrawn. There was, of course, finer chinks in the armour than would have initially been anticipated. It did seem that in this kind of ongoing, the legal proceedings was something that was mentioned. It was also stated that Alan was not completely against investing in the club again in the future. So that deal may not be dead, of course, but for now, that is not happening. But we did, of course, see Sam Bone come in during that time. We saw, of course, a good relationship with the players and the fans already established in just a very short period of time. Of course, that free trip to Notts County on the coach, of course, took all the players out for a meal, met all the players, had these discussions with them as well. So, Nigel, when it comes to this takeover talk for you, how important is this for Maidstone in taking that next step in establishing themselves in the National League? Do you think this is something that's essential, something that needs to happen, or do you think this is just perhaps an additional extra that we may benefit from, of course, but isn't entirely necessary to see us succeed down the line?
I think that depends on what you deem a success in the history of the club. Some people would say that just having a club to support, a club that isn't in debt, is a success. There's obviously some membership that we know that have been following the Stones for years, and I remember watching us playing at park pitches in the Tunbridge Wells and District League, and all them far strong places again that you wouldn't even be able to find on a map. Some of them. But I think for the going forward, I think we do need the investment. I think that's what this season has proved. I mean, the fan base has been there. It's as it was evident. We took what was it, nearly 200 to Torquay outside the bottom of the league, and we took 200 people to Torquay in the middle of January or the end of January. So there's certainly appetite there. And for me, I just look at teams around us like Bromley and we know Bournemouth and their financial situation and where they get their money from, but teams like Solihull, you look at those and the players that they sign, and you know there is an element of envy there. You think, why can't Maidstone, Bromley being the case in point, they're getting players from the same pool that we would get our players from, but they go there, and it's not exactly as if like a 3G pitch, because we play on a 3G pitch, we get bigger crowds than them. It's just, I think it's just a case of going to that next level. We're never going to be competing with the Chesterfields, Notts Counties, and Wrexhams. Certainly, with teams in the past like Sutton United, that's proved the point. They got their cash injection predominantly from the FA Cup run they had a few years ago. That's something, as you said, Sean bangs on about. He's a great advocate of it. Good FA Cup run, exactly, bang that drum. But we do need that little bit of just to be comfortable at this level, and I'm sure, it's that the old field of dreams, isn't it? Build it and they will come. I'm sure that the appetite's there. It's proved the appetite's there. Sometimes it's just a case of speculate to accumulate, just have that little bit extra. We're not talking about millions. We're not talking about having a sugar daddy come in that's just going to spend stupid money, or, and well, yeah, but, it's what stupid money, but at the end of the day, but, you tend to get the point where you get a lot of money, then you're playing over the odds for players because they know you've got money. It's just a case of just that little bit extra, just so we're comfortable in mid-table and we can win as many games as we lose, and we're not just going to these games and thinking, we do well to get a point from that game. That's all we sort of want, to be just competitive at this level. So, and I think it's probably a case of the genie's out of the bottle now. So, and you saw that, from the performances at Notts County, and we said, they were taken out. The players were taken out to Nando's the week before. They had an overnight stay up in Nottingham. Just those little things. It's the marginal gains. It's just feeling that little bit special, feeling like a professional player. You're not getting any more money for it, but it's just that appreciation of what you do and treating somebody like a professional footballer, and they will play like a professional footballer. Treat them like a part-time footballer, and you'll only get a part-time performance. That's my take on it, anyway.
Yeah, I completely agree. Actually, so of course now that leads us on to the final section that we do on these podcasts, the Off-Air podcast. It is the Player of the Month, and of course, this is usually where we have some sort of disagreement. I get moaned at for forgetting that someone got a red card and missed another game, or it's usually my fault, to be fair, at this point. But this time I feel like I've got a good one. No red cards, a few goal line clearances, a few makeshift right back performances, and of course it's going to be George Fowler for me, someone who I feel is so underrated, one of my favourite players in this team for Maidstone. You know what you're going to get every day of the week. For me, he's exactly what he was last season in terms of his consistency. Someone I spoke to recently, I actually compared to Gavin Hoyt of last season, who played, of course, in that right back role. Never had a bad game at right back, really, Gavin, and that's exactly what we see from George Fowler for me. Very, very underrated, always has been, and potentially always will be. Hopefully, people will see the light a little bit. I think he's a fantastic player, and for me, he's done really, really well in what has been a tough start to the year for Maidstone. But on to yourself now, Nigel, and who is your Player of the Month for January?
I'm going to go for Shamar Lawton, I think. I think he impressed on debut against Altrincham. He's carried that form on into the new year. I think he particularly impressed in the game in front of BT Sport cameras against Dagenham. Even mentioned by the commentators as being a good young talent, a good pickup by Maidstone. And I think what's good about his performances is when he's been subbed, which he has done in a lot of games, he's not performed as well when he's gone off the pitch. So, he's good at just sitting in there, playing that sort of defensive midfield role, but also driving the ball forward when he sees the opportunity presents itself, and carrying the team up the pitch. I mean, he's very similar, I think, in style to Sadhu Khan, who we had previously, who's now gone on to the Football League and playing for Swindon quite regularly. So I don't see him sort of following the same career path as Sadhu and breaking into the Football League. And I think at the moment it's Maidstone's benefit that we've got him in the squad.
Yeah, fantastic player who we've brought in there, of course, on loan from Millwall, I do believe. Is it until the end of the season? Not sure if that one's been extended. I think it has yet. So yeah, someone who's been a great contributor to this side already. Definitely a good young prospect to whatever team he may end up with after his loan does end. So on to yourself now, Sean. Who is your January player of the month?
Yeah, for me, Jack Barham been a standout. I mentioned his form earlier and how well he's been performing, scoring for fun. At times, probable man of the match against Wrexham as well. We mentioned the short guy, tall guy scenario that he generally comes up against, but the fact that he could outhead the likes of Hayden attack-wise for Maidstone in that particular match was a particular standout. Again, very similar to the Hungerford game, the way he converted there. So yeah, just scoring goals for fun. Pretty much most matches we've played when we've scored, it's been through him. So for my money, the good glimpses that we've had have been courtesy, certainly against Wrexham and a couple of other games. It's been Barham's shooting boots that have well and truly rocketed his profile for me for January.
Well, yeah, again, all three of us agree to disagree. All different picks. That is, of course, the whole point behind this. We don't confer before the podcast starts about who's picking who. This is just what happens. You kind of get our own opinions kind of uncontributed to by anybody else. So it's nice to see again that we've at least managed to pick a few players out who have had a pretty decent month in January. So now, of course, on to the closing segment of this podcast. And of course, we're going to be talking just a tiny little bit about our insights into next month, something that myself, Sean and Nigel have all at times deemed the point picker-upper of a month. Maybe not in quite as strange a phrase as that, but certainly where we need to pick up the majority of our points for the rest of the season. This is where, if we are going to stay up, it's got to be done. It's got to be done by getting as many points as possible in February. We have fallen short, of course, in the last few league games against Aldershot and Torquay. But Sean, what about yourself? How are you feeling about February going forward?
It's a tricky month ahead. It's against opposition that we should beat. I know I'm sending yourself and Adrian down to Yeovil. I also sent you that horrific stat, of course, that Yeovil have the best home defence in the National League. And when you think for a side that sat in the bottom of third of the division for pretty much the entirety of the season, you must think that must be an incredibly boring match. So we'll probably win that one 4-3 on Saturday. Eastleigh Trophy game, again, a free hit, the third of 4 away games. And then I'm off to Oldham with Darren in what could be probably the crunchiest of crunch matches on the road for Maidstone. And then we've got 3 in a row at home. Eastleigh again in the league under the lights. Gateshead at home. And then I'll be there with Fred for the Scunthorpe one under the lights again. That's finally been agreed with Scunthorpe. That should have been on Saturday the 11th of February, but that's obviously on Tuesday the 28th now. They're all teams down there with us, bar Eastleigh, of course, who've got have got some aspirations. Obviously, they lost to Barnet last night, which is a bit of a kicker for them. But I mean, it certainly keeps Barnet in the in the playoff hunt, and potentially for the title as an outsider, as Chesterfield may well be seen now. But I wanted to hit both of you up with a stat about potential survival, and if Maidstone are able to do it. There's been 35 sides relegated over the last 10 years or so because of the COVID seasons and the Macclesfield disappearance, Bury, things like that. How many of the sides after 30 games who've been in the bottom four, how many of those sides have got out of that predicament out of the 35 that have gone down, do you reckon?
5 out of 35 probably would be my guess.
Nigel, higher or lower?
I can go lower, 4, I was going to say.
Oh, well, you'll be surprised to learn that it is a larger sum of 9 teams out of the 35, and therefore giving us a 1 in 4, obviously, chance. Chesterfield done it twice in the 2 seasons before COVID, including the one where COVID finished it off early. Solihull Moors as well. Maidstone, famously, were in that situation the first season in the National League, first time round back in the county town. Guiseley, Borehamwood, Southport, Nuneaton, and Torquay also were at bottom of their particular conundrum. They were 10 points adrift with 16 left to play in the league that season, and they managed to survive. So out of that 35, the bottom 4 teams at the end of January, 30 odd games, that's how many. 9 have avoided relegation in those times. So obviously, that is pretty much where I see our odds now, 1 in 4. And if you are going to make up that 10-point difference like Torquay did a few years ago, February's the month to start. And no doubt we'll be sat here in 4 weeks' time recording this again on the 1st of March.
How many people have escaped it with 9 games left to play?
Yeah, and that's what I'll be looking up at the end of February, start of March. I'll be looking that up for us all again to see how miraculous the miracle has been from, as you say, because we've got 5 league games. So yeah, we'll probably be looking up the survival rate of sides in the bottom 4 with 10 to play. So I'll make a little note of that while you ask Nigel's opinion, I think.
Oh well, tune in next time for that great stat. If you don't come back for our fantastic charisma and gentlemanly charm, then of course come back for Sean's stats. Just before we go on to Nigel, of course, he did mention Yeovil coming up at the weekend. I'm going down this commentator with Adrian. I did actually record a segment for the Glovers Cast podcast today, something of course Nigel yourself have spoken about quite a bit before, especially off camera, something you quite enjoy listening to. So that should be coming out before the game this weekend. So of course do keep an eye out on my social medias, at least JP on comms on Twitter. I'm sure I'll post it on Facebook forums and things like that as well. But yeah, just keep an eye out for my little intro segment to Maidstone on their podcast this week. So Nigel, looking at February, of course we've both mentioned quite a lot of important games coming up. What are your thoughts?
Yes, as we said, it's an important month, and I think that's got a little bit more significant now with the trophy game. We just said previously that would you deem the season a success if we did get relegated and went to Wembley in the trophy. I personally think it would be a success. Maidstone have never been to Wembley before, so it'd be a feather in the cap there. And going on another stat, previously, I think 2016, 17 was it the season that York famously got relegated and beat Macclesfield in the trophy final. So although it might not be enough to get us out of the relegation zone, obviously a win's a win. And in our current situation, if we do get a morale boosting win sandwiched in between sort of league games there, it might just give us that little bit of a push. I mean, I think I said on commentary on Saturday that if you look at 50 points as being the magical figure, we're currently sitting on 21. So of the 16 games we've got left, 10 wins, that gives us it, pick up another few points there, just there for safety, you never know. You can come out of all the old sayings, can't you? It's never over till it's over, but we do need to start winning, and all of those survival, it's all about momentum. And we, again, on commentary on Saturday, we said, towards the end of the last season, what carried us towards that title was the momentum. There were certainly games in that period that we were outplayed. Hungerford at home being one of them. I remember we was outplayed, and we just don't know when to give up, and we just keep on going, keep on going, keep on going. But that needs to start. We need to get that, turning those defeats into wins now, and getting those points. So hopefully, if we go to the Oval on Saturday, get 3 points against the team that are down there with us, it's the old proverbial 6 points, isn't it? We get 3 points, they don't get the 3 points, and we get that a little bit more closer to them. But we need to start somewhere, and it needs to start quickly. And this is the month that you would say, would be the month to do it. So hopefully, let's do it, and hopefully we get a little bit more stability as well. I mean, at the moment, George is in the caretaker role, but hopefully either we get somebody in or we make it permanent with George until the end of the season, so at least he can mould the squad how he wants to mould it. Because at the moment, I think we're a little bit in limbo. He's not going to go and get players in. He might have to call a few favours in from a few friends that he knows to get players on loan to the end of the season, or just on a short-term deal to the end of the season. But until he knows where he's at, that's not going to happen. So, that's what I would hope. That we just get a little bit more stability around it, and just, whatever happens, we just see ourselves through to the end of the season, and we either make a late push just for survival, or we, get the players in so we're ready to hit the ground running next season.
For sure. I mean, looking at February, it has to be where we pick up the points. We've all mentioned that, of course, and hopefully we'll all be along that journey as well. As I said, I'll be commentating the next game after you see this podcast. Hopefully, if you're watching it soon enough after it's released, that will be Yeovil away on Saturday this weekend coming. So do, of course, tune into that on Stones Live if you aren't able to make the long journey down there. Of course, thank you all incredibly for staying with us. If you made it this far, please do, of course, subscribe to the channel. You must have enjoyed it long enough to stick it out this far, so do subscribe for some more content as well. Do leave a like on the video. It all helps out, boosts my ego a little bit, encourages me to get these two back on for the next time around come the end of Feb. And we will, of course, be back in 1 month's time to see how Maidstone have got on in the coming weeks. So again, thank you all so much for joining us. Thank you, Nigel and Sean, both for joining me here tonight.
No problem.
Yeah.
And of course, we'll all catch you in the next one. So thank you. Do subscribe to the JP on Comps channel, and we'll see you all in the next one.